adjustments to. Got
Oh,
it.
wow. It's in progress.
It's in progress. I feel like I'm in progress. How about you?
You feel like you're radiating. You don't feel like yeah, you are shining bright. It's the sun, I think, falling on your face so beautifully. And this incredible Mulholland Drive poster behind you. I love it.
Mulholland Drive is my favorite film. I love it so
I
much.
love it so much too. You're absolutely,
That's good. I feel we're already connected.
we are connected.
So you're okay if we use some video from this?
Sure.
Cool. Well, then I'll just do a little intro and then we'll get moving and I'll keep an eye on the time. So, okay, we'll start. Well, I'm Brian Wisnant. I am a writer for Awards Watch, and I'm so excited to be interviewing you, Lukas Dhont, from the Academy Award nominated film Close.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
How does that feel? Oscar nominee.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm processing it still. You know, when I think I have to go back to actually answer your question profoundly. I think I have to go back, rewind a little bit, and you know, I wanted to be a dancer first, but then I remember this very moment in time, like I was 9 or 10, and I did this solo dance performance for my classmates to like this Christina Aguilera song, Fighter.
Nice.
I know, great song. But unfortunately, like I felt that my way of moving, my way of dancing, the way that I composed myself was seen as very feminine. And it was the start of this real sensation of shame for me. And unfortunately, I was not someone who dared to stand out at that moment in time. I just really wanted to fit in. And so I stopped dancing. And my mom, who felt that my creative outlets all of a sudden was stopped. She borrowed a camera from a friend of hers, and she gave me that camera. And she said, just go ahead, shoot some material, make a film. And so I started to write a script with like zombies and like had my brother acting in it. And from that moment, the camera was in my hands. I feel like I never wanted anything else anymore. I wanted to make films. And I thought in the beginning, I wanted to make films with, other realities, sinking boats. I wanted to make horror films. I wanted to make everything in which I could disappear. I wanted to disappear from my reality. It was only later in film school that I realized I could also use film as a way to confront it. So to be nominated with a film in which I feel it is so much about, not about the jungles and the vampires and the blood, but about, young Lukas, in a way, that young perspective on the world that at the time felt so painful, is kind of really rewarding, because it's like this very authentic expression. And all of a sudden it's celebrated to this enormous extent, which feels really meaningful.
Wow, that makes me want to cry.
Don't cry.
Don't tell anyone. I can cry.
You can cry. Actually, you can cry.
And if there's any director that could get me to cry, I think it's you, because those kids, wow, everyone. Well, let's talk about Gustav and Eden, who are just absolutely phenomenal in this movie. They have this intimacy together, a comfortability. How did you get them to that point? Was there a lot of rehearsal? What was that like? Or was it all in the casting of the two?
Well, I think casting is really, really important. And with the two of them, so we did castings in groups, and with every group we worked for a day. Because I think with young people, as they've never done it before, you need to give them the time to dare to show you things. And if you have a day, it doesn't only become something for us, but it also becomes something for them, because many of them have never done a casting. And so they're also finding out, like, do we like it? Is it something we would want to do? And Eden and Gustav, by coincidence, were in a group together. And every moment in between, they would just gravitate towards each other, like during lunch or when there was a break, or like, and we saw that there was something they shared between them that felt immediate, like an intimacy that you only have with so little people.
Mhm.
They also had to fill in a questionnaire at the end. And like there was one question, my favorite person in the world is, and they had written each other's names.
No way.
Yes, I mean, because they're master manipulators, and because of course they understood that that would maybe get them the parts. But it's also what we saw there is they shared something that we weren't a part of. Like they were already collaborating in this way that felt like we could really make a film with these two. Of course, they were also incredibly talented and incredibly intelligent, but we saw many young, talented, intelligent people. With them, there was just that spark. And then we rehearsed over the course of 6 months, and just that kept growing. You know, they were so comfortable with each other. They felt so closely connected to the script as well, like the themes of masculinity, friendship, heartbreak. We talked about that very openly, because I think often we underestimate how intelligent young people are.
Right.
And they, yeah, I'm so proud of what they did. They gave just this extraordinary performance, and they brought Leo and Remy to life in a way that that I could have hoped for, but didn't know if it was actually going to be like that.
Right. I rewatched it again last night, and one of the things that really struck me was so much that happens without words.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, for example, when they're in the courtyard of the school, and Remy is laying on Leo, and then he moves, and also their fight in the bedroom, and when Leo has the second friend come over and he looks up at the bed where Remy might have been. I'm wondering if you talked to Eden about the inner monologue, what's going on in his head. Was it in the script? Could you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I think, they read the script once in the very beginning and then never again. And it was important for me because what I wanted to avoid is them feeling like they had to copy a text. I mean, they already have to study so much text by heart in schools, and it doesn't spark their creativity. I wanted Aiden to be a collaborator, just like Gustav. I wanted him to think and to feel and to be creative. And I think he realized from the beginning that freedom, that he was offered that freedom. And, we talked about that moment when at that fragile age, that they were at. So many of us want to belong to a group or to many rather than to one. And sometimes that makes us betray parts of ourselves. And it even makes us push away sometimes the people we love most. And that is something he knows. That is something he has felt, especially as a young man. Because we do live in this world where masculinity and intimacy often are not shown in the same frame.
Right.
We live in a world where so often when it comes to masculinity, we focus on the battlefields rather than on the tenderness. And I think as he lives in this world, the young man he is, the intelligence he has, and the creative collaborator that he became, I think he very much understood what those moments of silence in certain scenes meant or felt like. And then, of course, on set, it's about guiding them and sometimes giving them keys, not answers, because I don't like to give them answers. I like to raise questions. For example, I would be like, in those 6 months that we would spend together, and as we would, so for example, we're by the seaside and we're on a go-kart and we're having fun. And then sometimes I would, in a very informal way, ask like, why do you think Leo doesn't wait for his friend there. And I just install this idea of a question that they kind of need to answer for themselves. I do not give them the answer, because that is for me not what it's about. It's about making them understand that it's a deliberate choice, this
Right.
not waiting, and why. And so this is the way I work. Like I give them like keys, and I give them like intentions, and I try to make them aware of what happens in the script, at the same time valuing their freedom of expression. I think we're often afraid of silence, both in film as in real life. And I think what we really try to do is use the power of silence in this film. And of course, sometimes it's also through editing, you know, through showing someone looking at something and editing that in a way that we feel, as an audience, we feel something that is shaped by the construction of the film. So there's also things that Aiden is not a part of, that is just only a part of the making of the process. But I think it's a combination of those things.
Yeah, he's so incredible. I thought when I first saw it, and I think today he gives one of the best performances of the year. I mean,
Thank you so much.
he's remarkable. You know, I know this film resonates so deeply with LGBTQ people, myself included.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. I mean, the film certainly deals with, you know, male friendship and love and intimacy, masculinity. But I've never seen anything quite like this film in regard to these characters. And I think it's really interesting that Heartstopper, I don't know if you've heard of Heartstopper, comes out this year too. And we see, like, I'd never seen anything quite like that before. And, you know, they're 15, 16. I think Leo and Gustav are 13.
Yeah.
This feels like an LGBTQ movie. I don't know if you see it that way or even if that label matters, but I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, you know, what I think is this wound that we see on screen, it is also a queer wound.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I agree, is what I wanted to translate on screen, and I felt I hadn't seen, is this dynamic of when we are young and when we want to conform to this idea of a group. So often we deprive ourselves of an incredibly beautiful love, whatever that love may mean. And so we rupture something that sometimes as adults we try to reconnect to.
That's so well said.
But what I realized when we were writing the film, and also I guess thanks through the research of Niobe Way, who dedicated her life to talking to young boys and the way that they describe their friendships and their emotions, is that this wound is, next to being queer, also deeply human and felt by many, but especially felt by many men, whether they're queer or not queer. Because I think this is also just a male wound. I think we have constructed this world where masculinity so often is confused with virility,
Right.
where we value things like dominance, competitiveness, independence. And what we underestimate is the importance of the language of the heart, the importance of authentic connection. We tell men from a very early age that the only place they can find intimacy is through sex, and it's not to be found among each other. And so I think we create this epidemic of loneliness because of it that is incredibly unnecessary. And I think the root for that starts at that age of Leo and Remy.
Yeah, I think it does too. Wow. In regard to mental health, you know, I think adolescents and young people, I think we're all I think we're all struggling through a difficult journey of mental health right now. But I think adolescents and young teens and youth are, I feel for them the most. And I think you don't necessarily pinpoint exactly what's going on with Gustav, although certainly we see the pain of what happened with his broken relationship with Leo. It must have been a conscious decision to not say, this is what's happening with him. Could you talk a little bit about the nuance of that in regard to what you showed with Gustav's mental health struggle?
Yeah. Well, there is, like you said, I think Gustav for us was always this character for whom the world offered itself maybe too brutally, and has this fragility and has this sort of, has this complex relationship with mental health. We had this image of the door that comes back in the beginning of the film, but also in a crucial moment in the film where we do understand a breaking, like a very difficult moment of the film. And why that was important is because I feel it shuts us off from something. There's an interior and an exterior. There's this idea that someone also always stays a little bit of an island, and that even though we might want to understand them, there's this place where we cannot. Even though we want to access that character, there's something that is hidden from us.
Right.
I think mental health became important for us to talk about, and maybe even more while going through this period of the pandemic, where we felt like there was a lot of focus on physical health, which is of course incredibly important, but not as much on the mental. I think, when we go to schools also, we get stimulated to work on the language of the head. We learn mathematics and all these things, and the language of the heart doesn't always get as much space. So I strongly feel that we need to destigmatize talking about mental health and suicide for that matter. Because I think it's incredibly important, and I think it's an incredibly hard topic for us all to talk about. I mean, we get so much confronted with the wars done to others, that I think it's time to focus on the wars of the insides. And yeah, I mean, the very hard realization, I think, also through the research of Niobe, is that in this dominance-based masculine culture where we break, for many men, the connection with the heart, it's this moment in time where the suicide rate for men also goes up 4 times compared to that of women.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's about just confronting that in a way, looking that in the eyes. Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, I'm going to ask one more question. I know that we're running out of time. I want to talk a little about the cinematography. I think the cinematographer Frank Van Den Eden, am I saying his name correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved so many things, but in particular, the shots in the field and seeing them harvest. Those shots are just so stunning. These motion shots through the field of, Aiden running through the field. And then there are these shots where the camera, I swear it's almost as if you're looking into the soul of Leo. Obviously Eden's eyes are just like full of, I don't know, I can't believe he's a kid sometimes watching this movie. Could you talk about working with the cinematographer to achieve those two things, those close-ups of Eden and also those beautiful landscape shots?
Yeah. Well, I think, when we were talking about the film, I think with Frank van den Eden, of course, we've shot 2 films now. So we have this collaboration of 8 years in which we have come to understand each other and be very synchronized in what we want to achieve. And so when we first read the script together and talk about it, we watch a lot of paintings. We watch You know, I love Henry Scott Duke, and I love where color is used in a very expressionistic way with a lot of symbolism. So we talk a lot about color, we talk a lot about light, and then we talk a lot about movement. You know, the inner dancer inside myself pops up, you know,
Yeah.
and in many ways, these scripts are written like a choreography, where there's so much in what we show rather in what we tell. And I think there's this melody of movement, whether it's this continuation of fast movement or the contrast between something that moves rapidly and then a moment of utter silence, a moment of stillness, like two boys laying in a bed together as close as possible. And we knew that, especially in the beginning of the film, we wanted to start in this bunker, which is this, of course, space that we have linked for many, many years to masculinity, to then run out and enter this beautiful field of flowers and have this very long, beautiful movement through that fragility. Also a little bit of an ode to the 400 Blows and
Yes.
many other films that have used that visual code. And so I think when we deconstruct the film, it is very much about finding those movements, the importance of it, like, and then executing them as good as we can. That's a very long, like, fast movement where we're on this little golf cart with like many people on the roof and like a cinematographer, and like we try to run through these fields as fast as we can. But then we also realize that this is a film so much about implosion, about things happening on the inside, you know, about this character that has this armor on also for a very long part of the film. And so there's nothing like explained, or it's not like in this very explosive behavior. So the camera somehow has to linger close to this face in order for the audience to be allowed in order for the audience to be allowed to feel with the character what happens actually, or what is felt by him. I think, therefore, you know, it was important for us to bring this camera also really close to that face and to that expression and to the way that that young man looks at the world. Or is isolated from it in the second part, because a grieving process can also be something that is incredibly isolating. Like, we feel all these things, but we want the world to see them. And we feel like the world can't enter us anymore. And so I think we've tried to find a visual translation for that in the second half of the film, through the images and through the cinematography.
Yes, you succeeded. You did.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate this so much. I'm very grateful to have talked to you, and I love the film.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Don't tell anyone, but it has my vote. If I was Academy, and don't tell anyone, but I guess
I won't say a word. Your secret is safe with me. Thank you.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. And again, best of luck. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks. All right.
So good meeting you.
Same.